Hello, students. I'm Kim Priestmeyer, and I'm the Dean of Adult, Graduate, and Online Studies at Belhaven University. And the purpose of this lecture today is to go over some of the major changes with APA 7th edition. As you probably know, and I know that many of you have already heard from me, that we have changed over from the 6th edition of APA to the 7th edition. So I just wanted to come to you today and bring you a brief overview of some of those major changes. This presentation is not intended to be completely comprehensive. It's simply going to hit on some of the major changes that most students will use a lot of the time. So let's go ahead and get started. One thing that I wanted you to know is that this lecture that I'm doing today and all of your APA resources for 7th edition can be found in a couple of different ways. The way that you will access them probably most often will be through your Canvas course page, just right there on the course page. And if you look at the bottom of the left-hand side, you'll see a little thumbtack. And if you click on that, you'll see that's where we house our academic resources, our academic help for students, and our APA resources. So probably just the quickest, most easily accessible way to get to those is just right there on your course page. So if you'll click on the academic help and APA resources, you'll go to the academic help page in BlazeNet. And you'll see that on the left-hand side of the page, where you see the red arrow pointing, you'll see a list of different APA resources that you can use as you start writing your papers in fall 2020. So some of these are links that go to the Purdue OWL. Some are simply sample papers that you can model your own after. We have a couple of those on there. And then this lecture that I'm doing today will also be housed there. So if you want to watch it again, you're certainly welcome to. So one thing that I wanted to go over with you that's definitely one of the major changes is what your title page of your papers will look like. Now again, this lecture today is simply for students, not for, say, professional presentations. So since most of the people watching this today will be students in our undergrad and grad programs, I wanted to go over the major things, and certainly the title page is pretty important because it's the first thing that you'll be, that will be the face of your paper that your faculty will see. And I think we're all really excited that one of the major changes with APA 7th edition is that there's no longer a running head in that left-hand corner of your paper. I think we can all do a cheer for that because I know that just setting that up on a document has been kind of tricky for some students. So there's no longer a running head. Now you'll still have your page number in the top right corner. That will not change. But to go ahead and just look at the content of your title page and how that's set up. First of all, notice that your title is bolded. That's a change from the 6th edition. So that title is bolded. And then, and you'll notice here, it gives you little directions on this slide. You want that to be about 3 or 4 lines below the margin of the page, okay? And so again, just make sure that it's bolded. And then you'll go down a few lines again, and you will have, as you can see here, that would be your name, your department that you're writing it for, you're writing the paper for, the name of the course, the faculty's name, and the date. So there's a lot more included on the APA 7th edition title page than there was on the 6th edition, minus the running head. So that's obviously one of the first things that you want to make sure that you're doing correctly as you turn in your papers, starting with fall 2020. There's a few other changes here that I'm going to talk about. They're kind of going to be, some of them are just going to be kind of random changes with 7th edition. And, but I tried to choose the ones that I think that students are probably needing to know the most. One of those is the change in pronouns. So notice we're not going to do that he, she, his, her thing any longer. I know that sometimes students will write he/she or his/her, or they'll put or in between. What APA 7th edition wants us to do is simply to use the pronoun they or their, depending upon how you're using it. So there's some examples here for you to see. A researcher's career depends on how often they are cited, okay, instead of he, she, all right? So that's a change. And again, I think that we can all agree that it's a good change because that he, she, that was a little bit awkward in our writing. All right, descriptive phrases. Again, this is something that I think is going to take some of the awkwardness out of our writing. I really like this change. So instead of using adjectives as nouns to label groups of people, you're going to use a descriptive phrase. So you can see with APA 7th edition, people living in poverty are at highest risk. So for 6th edition, sometimes we would write the poor, okay? It just simply sounds more appropriate and less awkward to use a descriptive phrase. It lets your reader know more specifically the group of people that you're speaking about and eliminates some of that awkwardness. So again, those descriptive phrases. These are a couple of little minor formatting changes that I thought you would want to know about. Instead of using 2 spaces at the end of a period, APA 7th edition now is asking you to use 1 space after a period. Unless your instructor specifically asks otherwise, now we're using 1 space. Also, instead of using italicized print to add emphasis or to set that word apart, we are now asking you with 7th edition to put those words in quotation marks. So in general, what you really want to remember is just don't use italicized print for that purpose. If you're trying to set a word apart, put quotation marks around it. This is something that's going to come up right away when you start citing your sources. As you know, it's very common for sources to have certainly more than 1 author, and certainly they can have many authors. But here's the new rule about 3 or more authors. For the in-text citation for works with 3 or more authors, you're now going to shorten it right from the very first citation in the paper. You only include the first author's name and et al. So for APA 7th edition, Taylor et al. 2018, instead of APA 6th edition where you would have to write all the names out. So for 3 or more authors, you can shorten it from the very beginning. Again, I think that's really going to add ease to citing your sources, which we know many times have more than 1 author. Some changes to the reference page. You know that you always have to put together a references page at the end of your paper. Now, certainly, there are, again, changes that go beyond what I'm showing you here. This is mainly about formatting, and really the biggest thing is that you now bold the term references. Before with 6th edition, you did not bold that, just like you did not bold the title of your paper. But now you do. And so we wanted to make sure that you knew that. And again, always remember, which I always want to remind students, you never want to call it references page. It's just references. But now that term is bolded. So that's definitely an important change. You're no longer going to use retrieved from unless your instructor requires it, but most instructors will not. So you're not going to actually write out those words any longer. You can see in 6th edition, we used to have to put retrieved from and then the name of the website. But now you just simply put the name of the website and you do not put the words retrieved from. Again, I think that simplifies and streamlines. I really like that change. Another one, the publisher location is no longer required. So instead of putting New York City or London or something like that, you do not have to use that any longer. So no publisher location. And so these are just some these are major changes. These are things that I think students are going to use a lot as they prepare their papers for 7th edition. You know, obviously doing your title page correctly is really important, making sure your sources are cited within the paper. And in addition, obviously matching that on your references page. So with just really a few tweaks, you will be able to be using APA 7th edition well and thoroughly. Again, this is not intended to be complete or comprehensive for all the changes, but these are a lot of biggies that I think will come up for most students very early in the writing in fall 2020. So I wanted to just do a quick little video and remind you of that. Of course, many of these examples came from the Purdue Writing Lab, which we also have on the academic help page. That'll be a great resource for you as well. So the best to you as you move forward in your courses, and God bless.